We're not on screen yet. There we are. And good evening, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the 8 o'clock spot, live here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and Twitter account. As always, I'm your host / moderator / Judge Bryson Carver. Very excited to be with you on this episode 21. A little bit of a rocky start production-wise, but we are here in the building. We got three fantastic panelists, including the defending champion and the points leader, Mr. Mike Guido, who has some explaining to do. Mike, how are you doing? And please explain yourself and explain to America what we've been discussing for the last 10 minutes.
Well, listen, Bryson, I appreciate you a disclaimer that he said, listen, you can go off for you can go off on this topic for as long as you want, and I wouldn't take any points away from you. So it was listen, you showed a lot of humility there, Bryson. I give you a lot of credit for that.
Yes, of course.
But I compared Josh Allen to Kobe Bryant in our Gryd group chat, and I didn't do listen, I did not say, by the way, that their legacies can be compared. I just said that the Bills and the Lakers similarly had to live and die by the good and the bad that both brought. That's all, right? Josh Allen would be able to make the big play. Listen, when he's throwing the ball off his back foot in front of three defenders into triple coverage and it's incomplete or it gets intercepted, everybody's just like, what the hell is Josh Allen doing? But when that pass gets completed, everybody thinks he's Superman. Kobe Bryant was the same way. When his back was turned to the basket and he was taking shots in triple coverage and everything like that over guys' heads, and it would hit the side of the backboard, guys were just like, listen, why doesn't Kobe ever pass? But then when it went in, you're just like, oh, well, that's why he doesn't pass. That's all I'm getting at. Jeez Louise. Everybody's getting on my case. The amount of times I've had to explain this to people is insanity.
Tim Barnard, how are you doing, sir?
It sounds like I'm doing better than Mike.
Everybody's doing better than me.
I will say, I'm sporting my, Patriots cutoff sweatshirt for the greatest coach of all time because I know that it's coming to an end. I respect Bill. I am grateful for all the memories that he gave. But at the end of the day, whether I know a lot of people, don't want it to happen, but I hope it does happen because the time has come. It's up. Bring in, I know we're going to be talking about it later, but bring in Mike Vrabel.
It sure seems like all signs could be pointing that way. Obviously, we will get to that in our second segment. Finally to you, multi-time Gryd Network, 8 o'clock spot contributor, Dylan Lima. Dylan, how you doing, my man?
Doing well. I'm as much as I like to agree with Mike in certain ways. At least Kobe is clutch and has won 5 championships in his career, unlike Josh Allen. So it's kind of tough to compare the two. But overall, I'm doing great. Besides that,
yeah. I can't believe we got some of the Celtics and Red Sox fans out here taking up for Kobe, and you gotta. It's odd. It's an odd day on the 8 o'clock spot. It's the new year, obviously, so we're all trying to adjust.
I literally just said not
stop.
on.
You already had your turn, Michael. You had your turn.
Listen to me.
Zip it, or I will take points away. If you had your chance, you explained yourself. We'll move on. Before we get into our first segment, let's look into the leaderboard for the 8 o'clock spot. There is Mike Guido with a pretty commanding lead right now over second place Barry Grant Jr., the two co-founders of this Gryd Network. Alfred Parsard Jr., followed by Devin Nettles, John Rivera, Dalton Brown, Adam Bessie, Ryan Flowers, Anthony Besley. There you are, Dylan, Alex Johnson. There's Tim Barnard on the leaderboard last week, and Eric Van Lenton right there at the bottom. So before we get into our first take as well, or our first segment rather, let's look at our first round rules. It's pretty simple, folks. A great take gives you 200 points. A good take gives you 100 points. An okay take gives you 50. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed, 0 points. A champion was crowned last night in Houston, Texas. Jim Harbaugh led the Michigan Wolverines to their first title, their first outright college football national championship in virtually 3 decades. Michigan ran for over 300 yards against the Washington Huskies in a 34-13 W for Michigan. They were able to cap off a 15-0 season and win the national championship. But there's been a lot of buzz. Jim Harbaugh, we know his history being in the National Football League as a head coach with the San Francisco 49ers. And there's a lot of buzz given how many openings there are that he could take another one of these open jobs. Washington, Atlanta, I even heard Tennessee briefly floated today. So I'll start with you, Mike Guido. Does Jim Harbaugh, after this national title win, go back to the NFL?
I think he does. And I think it's a tough decision for him because the feeling that I get from Jim Harbaugh is that he genuinely loves Michigan. Like, I really don't think that this is going to be like, oh, well, won my national championship. All right, now I'm out. No, he built something there. He did what he wanted to accomplish, but that doesn't mean that he wants to immediately leave. Listen, he hired that agent that a lot of NFL head coaches hire to get these NFL head coaching jobs. That has something to do with where I'm at here. But also, you got to keep in mind of what Jim Harbaugh really is. I was talking to Gryd co-founder, my good buddy, Barry Grant Jr. We all know him. I was talking about this with him the other night, and I was saying, like, listen, Jim Harbaugh is a builder. You know, he likes to build programs and franchises from the ground up. Well, not only do I think he could go to the NFL, I think he could go to the NFL and take on a poor job and make it a good one. It wouldn't surprise me if the Bears had fired Matt Eberflus or something like that, or if he stepped in to go coach New England or something, and he just wanted to take his own guys, instill his own philosophy where he had a lot of control. I don't know that would be against his wishes. So listen, I think Jim Harbaugh is likely going to the NFL, but listen, it's going to be a tough decision for him because, like I said, I think he genuinely loves what he did there at Michigan.
Yeah, I think he does too. And you mentioned he's a builder. And obviously I think Chicago's not as bad of a job as some might perceive. Obviously, they have the number one pick. They have another first rounder. We'll see what they do with Justin Fields. And they finished the season relatively strong. So, but a potential job there. If he's interested in Chicago, you can bet your dollar that they're going to move on from Matt Eberflus if necessary to bring in Jim Harbaugh, given his track record. Because people forget San Francisco was a disaster when he took over. They make 3 straight NFC title games and he gets fired after some disagreements with the front office in 2014. But good take, Mike. I'm going to give you a good take there. Solid. I think Jim Harbaugh, there's a very good chance he goes back to the NFL. And listen, he's going to be in a great position to potentially make some noise if he does so, especially if he goes to the Chargers with Herbert. There's a lot of different options that he's going to have on the table. I anticipate he'll take a little bit of time off before he makes his decision. Tim Barnard, listen, your franchise could be in position to be in the running for Jim Harbaugh. We'll see again more Mike Vrabel in just a second. But do you think Jim Harbaugh does indeed go back to the NFL after this national championship?
You know what? I think it's kind of split, because here's the thing. If he wants to go back to the NFL, in my opinion, he definitely should go with the Chargers. I almost said San Diego just to force a habit. But he definitely should go back to the Chargers, because at the end of the day, that's the best quarterback, I think, of any team without a head coach right now in Justin Herbert. And as you brought up, Bryson, when he took over in San Fran, the 49ers sucked. They were 6-10 in that season. Alex Smith was about to be out the door. His family wanted him to go somewhere else. And Jim Harbaugh was able to convince him to stay. Not only did he stay, Alex Smith just revitalized his career. Because let's not forget, Alex Smith sucked as a Niner before Jim Harbaugh got there. Even though he was the first overall pick, he was not good. And so with that, I think that he needs to go to San Diego. But if he wants to stay in Michigan, there's 2 reasons why he's doing that. Number one, he's an alum. Absolutely, like you said, Mike, bleeds Michigan maize. Right. And also, too, let's not forget, he has a contract extension. Even though his contract's up in 26, I think, right. He has a contract extension for 10 years at $125 million. I mean, that's a lot of freaking money. It makes him the highest paid college football coach in the country. So it's going to be a hard decision. And I agree. I think at the end of the day, he should take some time off. Probably will take time off. He mentioned that on the post game. He's like, we're pushing practice back till March. So I think it's going to be a tough decision at the end of the day. I believe if he should jump to the NFL, and if he does, he should go to the Chargers.
Yeah, I think he makes some great points. And again, with Harbaugh, obviously we're at the point, like, he's kind of the quarterback whisperer. I mean, just about everybody works with him. Alex Smith and Colin Kaepernick had a couple of great seasons there, and the quarterbacks at Michigan. I was a big skeptic on J.J. McCarthy. Like, man, can this kid play from behind? And we saw him put together that drive last week against Alabama and play relatively well. Again, mostly led by the running game last night, but J.J. McCarthy played well enough to win that game last night. And, that's kind of what he specializes in, is like Mike mentioned, kind of developing culture, and like you mentioned, Tim, developing quarterbacks, and match him with Justin Herbert. Herbert has had really a guy to kind of develop him him as a talent. He's kind of been very good since he came into the league, but hasn't really gone beyond that thus far. Maybe Harbaugh takes him to the next level. I'm going to give you a great take, Tim Barnard. I think you laid out the options. Does he stay at Michigan? Obviously, you mentioned the potential contract. I think that's an important point too, because I don't think, listen, Michigan is not offering him that if they don't think there's a threat that he couldn't go to the NFL. Like they're bargaining against the league. It's not the other way around. So we'll see what happens there. Finally, with you, Dylan Lima, does Jim Harbaugh stay at Michigan after this national championship, chance to go back-to-back potentially, or does he go back to the National Football League?
I'm going to take a strong stance on this. I think he's going back to the NFL. If we're just going to talk about his stance in Michigan right now, he stood on his promise. He brought Michigan a championship. That's something that you wanted to do from the get-go. Once he said, like, he's what he set out to do. And let's not forget, he was in some hot water this year. He got suspended twice, one in the beginning of the season, once in the middle of the season for for scandalous cheating reasons. And although they still gave him the privilege to be able to coach during the playoffs, you're not going to forget about that. If there's another scandal that ends up coming out again, it's definitely going to screw Harbaugh's chances in the future of moving back to the NFL, or even if not, I was not a better time to strike than coming off, the best possible season you could have, an undefeated season that ends with a championship. And I firmly believe every single coaching vacancy in the NFL, all those teams are going to be outbidding each other. And, I wouldn't be surprised if it's going to be $100 million contract. We've seen that with the Raiders. Hell, if Al Davis wasn't crying broke and flying commercially, he probably would throw that money at him again. Throw that same type of money at Harbaugh again. Chargers are a big possibility. I think there's just so many different possibilities. And when you're at the height of, the mountaintop essentially of college, it's like, I see him as a very competitive dude and someone that looked at his NFL stint and it's like, man, I came just short of winning the Super Bowl. Why not cement my legacy and win a Super Bowl with the team, whether it's building or taking an already decent team and bringing them there. Not many coaches can say that they've won both the national championship and a Super Bowl. So I think Harbaugh will definitely strike while the iron's hot.
Yeah, I think only in the current era, you bring up an interesting point. I think only Pete Carroll in the modern era has won a national championship and a Super Bowl. So it's quite impressive what Jim Harbaugh was able to do across the board. I'm not gonna lie to you, I almost lost there for a second because Dylan, for the first 30 seconds or so, you were pulling a Frozone Guido on us right there. You're going in and out on us, and so I thought that was a tribute to Frozone over there. I thought we were about to get like a return, and you'd like transferred your powers or something. That was very interesting. But nonetheless, Dylan, I'm gonna give you a good take. Good take here out of this first round on Jim Harbaugh. I agree with all y'all across the board. I think the writing's kind of on the wall. Obviously bringing in the agent he brought in and the money that Michigan's offering, it feels almost inevitable at this point, especially him winning the national title game with all the sanctions, potential sanctions against Michigan coming down the pipeline. It could be potentially devastating for Michigan. So he's like, I'm going to get out of here while I can with the ring on my finger. So obviously, everybody, feel free to chime in the comment section. We'd love to hear your thoughts on our opinions and otherwise. Patrick Brown here at the Gryd Network. He says, what's good, fellas? Have a great show tonight. We appreciate that, Patrick. And to all those out there watching and listening, we appreciate you being with us on this Tuesday night. Let's look at our second round rules as we go into our second round. A great take gives you 400 points. A good take gives you 200 points. An okay take gives you 100. And a bad take, you come home empty-handed again with 0 points. Everything gets double. We had some pretty surprising news today regarding Mike Vrabel and the Tennessee Titans, who decided to part ways. The Titans firing Mike Vrabel today after 5 seasons with the franchise, despite the fact that just 2 seasons ago, he won the Coach of the Year award. But Tennessee feels like they're going into kind of a rebuild. There's a little bit of a power struggle between Vrabel, the new general manager, just really didn't see eye to eye. So both sides decided to part ways. And obviously, given how low the coaching, potential coaching possibilities were for some of these teams, you add Mike Vrabel to the mix, and that's a very attractive name on the market. So I'll start with you, Tim. I think I know where you're going with this, but I'll ask you anyway. Where is the most likely destination for Coach Vrabel?
I think the most likely destination is imprinted right on my chest. I think the New England Patriots are the team where he should go. And I think it all starts off, too, with just his relationship. And, again, we all know Bill is just this, stats and, type of guy. He's not really a relationship builder, but Mike Vrabel is. Mike Vrabel not only is, I think, 48 years old, he's young, he's played the game, he can relate to players, and you see it. The way he interacts with the guys. I mean, even the guys that he's coached and either plays against or retired, it's unbelievable. And the way that I think the thought all stems from when He got inducted to the Patriots Hall of Fame this past season. And during the Bills-Patriots game, he spoke at halftime and said, quote, "I've been a lot of places. This is a special place with great leadership, great fans, great direction, great coaching. Enjoy it. It's not like this everywhere." I think that is a massive tell, not only to the fans to say, hey, listen, appreciate Bill, appreciate what you had. It's not like this everywhere. But also I think it also goes back to Robert Kraft and the Krafts and how much he respects and appreciates that relationship he has. He sat with them in the box during that game. I can't imagine what was going through the minds of the Titans owners seeing their head coach, granted he inducted as a player, but seeing their head coach in the booth with Robert and Jonathan. I mean, I think at the end of the day, he should go back to New England. Granted, it might be a little bit of a rebuild project, but that relationship he has with the Krafts, they are going to give him carte blanche. I am almost certain of that, because not only they want him, but because he's a part of the system. He's a part of what the Krafts know, dating back to Bill Parcells. When they brought in the guy they didn't know, and Pete Carroll, they didn't like him. They didn't get along with him. And that's why they brought in Bill Belichick, because they had the relationship with him dating back to Parcells. So at the end of the day, it's got to be New England.
Yeah, it definitely feels like, again, like I said earlier, the writing's a little bit on the wall. One thing I will say, though, that's at least interesting is the fact that some of the criticism with Belichick has been the fact that he's been the de facto general manager. He hasn't really been willing to give up the power. Is Mike Vrabel going to be the type of guy to say, hey, I'll let y'all hire a general manager. I'll just focus on the football side? That's something that could come into conflict. That might be part of the reason he left, or not, I shouldn't say left Tennessee, why they decided to part ways, him and the Tennessee Titans. But nonetheless, the fit makes sense. And I had no idea about that quote from his Hall of Fame induction. That is definitely, it feels like a direct shot at the Tennessee Titans front office when that occurred. So there you go. So Tim, I'm going to put it up here. I'm going to give you a good take for this segment. I thought you did a solid job pointing out the points. Obviously, Vrabel's history in New England, and again too, like you mentioned his youth, you mentioned his vigor, and he's a culture builder. We saw Tennessee, the players loved him, but that tends to be the case with former players. We see with Dan Campbell, Antonio Pierce, guys like that. Mike Vrabel's taking it to a different level, so he definitely commands the respect of a locker room. So it is potentially a good thing for New England. To you, Dylan, where do you think is the most likely destination for Coach Mike Vrabel?
As much as I would love for him to be with the Patriots, I think that Bill will rather step down as GM and stay as strictly a head coach before he goes anywhere else. I know Kraft is definitely very loyal, and obviously Bill has given him many championships and many reasons to keep him as the head coach. I mean, but, as we're talking about Vrabel, and there's a topic about Vrabel, I look at what he did with Tennessee. He always had a stout defense, but not so great offense. So I think he will flip it and, oh no. Can you hear me? Hello?
I can hear you. You're back and froze
Hello?
on again. We can hear you.
What was the last part? Sorry, I'm so mad my connection.
You were talking. No, you were talking. We've heard you the whole time. No, you were talking about. You said you would flip it.
Okay, yeah. So I think he'll go with the Chargers because he was very bulimic with offense when it comes to Tennessee. And you can't deny that the Chargers have such an explosive offense, and most of their work is on defense. And since Vrabel specializes in defense, I think he'll be more than capable to be able to turn that unit around, mess around with whatever money he's got to do to be able to bring in the talent to make the Chargers an actual competitive team that can compete for the long haul. So, and also not to forget, they're in LA, a beautiful location. Everything you could possibly want is there. And they'll be giving him as much money as Vrabel could possibly want. So I think all signs point to him being on the Chargers.
Yeah, that's definitely a great fit. And any time that there's a head coach opening with a great quarterback, or at least a very talented quarterback, those are always the most attractive because it's the hardest position to get right. You can draft defensive backs, wide receivers, linebackers, even offensive linemen if you pick them pretty early on in the draft. But once you get that great quarterback, you don't want to lose them. And obviously the Los Angeles Chargers very much have that. So overall across the board, Dylan, I'm going to give you a great take. I think you did a good job bringing up solid points regarding the fit there with Vrabel and what he's kind of going to look for. Because really, if you think about it, and then no disrespect, obviously, to you or to Tim, but it feels like the Patriots are almost a worse version of what the Titans are right now. Would he want to inherit a situation that's almost identical to what he had? Just the players aren't quite as good. Maybe he wants a clean slate. We'll see. But Dylan, I'm going to give you a great take. Mike Guido, finally with you. Where's Mike Vrabel's next destination going to be? Where's it most likely to be?
Well, first of all, I think that, one of the points that none of us have touched on yet is the weirdness of this whole thing. I mean, there were 2 years really of digression, I guess you could say, in Tennessee, where you had back-to-back losing seasons, but I don't know that anybody ever attributed that to Mike Vrabel's coaching job. I think a lot of people said, listen, it's instability at quarterback. They had traded A.J. Brown, right? Like, this was a very weird situation. Coming from an understandable place, I guess Tennessee might want to go with a more offensive-minded head coach, maybe in the future with Will Levis coming up and all of that stuff. That's just speculation, but it's something that's been running through my head all day. But as for where he's going to go, I honestly think that I'm with Tim here. I think it's likely to be New England because, truth be told, I think Tim is right where it just feels like it's the end for Bill Belichick in New England. I don't know if he goes somewhere else. I don't know if he retires. I don't know what it is, but it almost feels like it. And Tim might be able to say something about this as well, but this has almost like an insider trading feel to it, right? Because earlier in the season, what you heard from the Tennessee Titan front office was, we expect Mike Vrabel to be here for a long time. They were all in on Mike Vrabel like 2 months ago. And how quickly things changed to now where he's fired. It almost sounds like maybe Mike Vrabel has an inside track of, listen, it's like when Doc Rivers wanted to go coach the Clippers, right? The Celtics didn't want to get rid of him, but Doc was like, listen, this is where I want to go. So let's focus on getting you there. So that's kind of where this feels for me. I understand what you're saying, Bryson. It kind of feels like this is a worse situation for him to go to. But again, I think Mike Vrabel is one of these guys where he can kind of flip the culture. He's a good mix of trying of keeping what Bill Belichick has instilled in that organization for a
10
long
seconds,
time,
Mike.
and kind of, I guess, revamping it in a younger and tougher sense, if that makes sense.
Sure. Yeah, no, it does. And obviously that they kind of need, like, it feels like a little bit of Belichick. Like there comes a point in time where the message wears thin. Like that's often why Pete Carroll's been so much better with young teams than veteran teams, because eventually the messaging gets old after a while. And listen, it's quite uncommon. That's putting it mildly, to have a coach there for as long as, obviously, as Belichick's been there. It's almost unheard of in today's NFL. You have to go back to Don Shula, Tom Landry, George Howe. Like, these are the only guys that have had coaching careers with one team consecutively as long as Belichick has. So I think you made some good points. And Mike, I'm going to hang on. Let me make sure I get the point total right real quick. Okay, Mike Guido, I'm going to give you a good take once again for this segment. That the Doc Rivers thing actually does make sense. I could see that being a similar sort of comparison in that regard, but we'll see what happens. Looks like we got a comment here by Barry Grant Jr. Let's see what he has to say, despite the fact he's not on the show. The best thing that happened to Vrabel is getting fired by the Titans. Man ran out of there like a man getting caught sleeping with someone's wife. LOL. He will be sought out like crazy. There's no question about it. Harbaugh is kind of an unknown quantity. We don't know if he's going to go to the NFL for certain. So that means right now Vrabel's the hottest commodity on the coaching market. Obviously, Ben Johnson, guys like that. So we'll see what happens. Belichick, we'll see if he's available sooner rather than later. But Patriots and Chargers, at least to me, make the most sense to this point. Watch out for Washington as well. I could see that as a potential landing destination for him as well. All right, moving on to a guy who, actually, before we even get into that, let's talk about the third round rules. Let's talk about the rules before we get into anything. Everything gets doubled from the second round. A great take gives you 800 points. A good take gives you 400. An okay take gives you 200. And a bad take gives you 0 points. Again, now to a guy that Mike was just going crazy about earlier in the show, Josh Allen, who led the Bills to 5 consecutive Ws to get them to the playoffs, to the AFC East title, and maybe most importantly to the 2 seed, which would guarantee them at least 2 home playoff games. Buffalo getting a 21-14 W against the Miami Dolphins. And listen, despite the fact it was kind of an uneven season by Buffalo, a lot of ups, a lot of downs, having to fire their offensive coordinator, Ken Dorsey, Josh Allen leading the league in turnovers, but then leading the league in rushing touchdowns, kind of an up and down roller coaster season. Sean McDermott's job is on the line. So a lot happened for Buffalo this season, and now they're in the playoffs as the 2 seed. So I'll start with you, Dylan. According to Vegas, Buffalo is the number 2 favorite behind Baltimore to win the AFC. Should they be?
I'm going to say yes. And, the Buffalo's definitely had their fair share of struggles. Josh Allen has definitely not been the same that have come to expect from him in previous years. However, Josh Allen is still a very good quarterback. He has plenty of playoff experience. He knows what it takes to be successful and at least make it deep. Sure, he hasn't made a Super Bowl, but he's at least gone to the AFC Championship, and you can't really say that about many of the quarterbacks in the AFC side. They also still have a good running game with James Cook, who's a 1,000-yard rusher. You still got plenty of good receivers, especially with Stephon Diggs being the dog that he is. And then, they still got Shakir. They got Gabe Davis, although they're not crazy names. Josh Allen has done wonders with them already, and I could see them still continuing. The only other two teams I could see having similar odds would be the Chiefs and the Dolphins, and they're playing each other. And the Chiefs, they're not the same animal they were, even last year when they won the Super Bowl. Even though like they were showing like this decline, they still won it. I don't see that. I don't see them repeating. And then the Dolphins, they're limping in with all the injury struggles they have. And on top of that, it's looking like Buffalo's going to play either one of those two teams come the divisional round, if all things, are expected to go, in my eyes, at least. So I think overall, I think the Bills have a great chance to make it to the Super Bowl, if not for the Ravens. So yes.
Yeah, and there's no question Baltimore's a favorite. I don't think anybody here would disagree with that. And listen, Buffalo's been playing as obviously they've been the hottest team in the AFC outside of Baltimore in the last month, winning, and they've been kind of in the playoffs, so to speak, for the last month. They've had to win all these games in order to win their division. And frankly, if they had lost in the division and been the 6th seed, even if they were going to Kansas City, they have won there before, but you kind of trust the championship medal, the experience of Kansas City to potentially get the job done. Now, if those two face off, that thing's in Buffalo for the first time between Mahomes and Allen. So that definitely makes a big difference. There's no question about that. So Dylan, I'm going to give you a good take for this segment. Listen, Buffalo's been on some playoff runs. They've often gotten shut out by the likes of Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid and Travis Kelce and others. But listen, this is about a good opportunities they've had given the home field component of it, at least until a potential AFC title game matchup against Baltimore. So a good take there by Dylan. Mike Guido, should the Buffalo Bills have the second best odds to win the AFC?
Absolutely. They absolutely should. And I to be honest, it has less to do with how much I believe in the Bills. It has a lot to do with how little I believe in everybody else other than Baltimore. I think, there are every other team that's in the AFC bracket, again, with the exception of Baltimore, have bigger concerns than I have with Buffalo, truthfully. I mean, listen, Kansas City, to me, this is not the Kansas City of old. They don't have a receiver that can consistently create separation. This is just not an offensive football team that I think can sustain itself in the playoffs. I just don't think that they can. Are you really going to tell me that CJ Stroud as a rookie is going to go on a run and go to the Super Bowl? Are you really going to tell me that Joe Flacco is going to go on a run with the Cleveland Browns? Like, there's a lot of things that you have to convince me of in order for me to knock Buffalo off. The truth of the matter is with Buffalo is that they're 6-1 since they fired Ken Dorsey as their offensive coordinator. They've been playing much better football in the second half of the season. Listen, they blew out teams like the Cowboys. I mean, this is an offense that can get rolling. And listen, in a lot of these big games, like I said, you take the good with the bad with Josh Allen, but in a lot of these games, I mean, you just see it, especially in the second half of these games. He just becomes Superman. It's just unbelievable some of the things that he can do. They've committed to running the football, which has become a huge difference maker for them, because even when Josh Allen's not great, they can still find some sustainability in their offense. So I'm all in on the Bills. I think they're one of two teams in the AFC bracket that can go to a Super Bowl. It's them and Baltimore, and that's really it. Like I said, I have a lot of questions going through the AFC bracket outside of Baltimore and Buffalo.
Yeah, I mean, you make some fair points, and obviously I believe that the odds go Baltimore, Buffalo, Kansas City, and then I'm pretty sure it might be like Cleveland, Miami, kind of neck and neck. I think Cleveland's much better spot than Miami, but that's another discussion. Listen, across the board, I see some of the things you're saying. I'm going to give you if I want to make sure I get this right. Yep, I want to give you a good take because the simple fact, I don't know if Buffalo's offense is quite as good as you're giving credit for the simple fact that they had that explosion against Dallas. They had a good start against Kansas City, but sometimes whether it's kind of the middle of these games, second, third quarters, they're either turning the football over, they're struggling to generate any offense consistently. And you got to realize, if not for that long punt return, the 95-yarder, do they win that game against the Miami Dolphins? There's a lot of, and props to them for making the plays. I'm not trying to act like they didn't deserve to win the game. They obviously very much deserve to win win the game. But listen, there's certain things that I don't think this offense can get quite as hot as some other offenses. But the point of sort of it's a by default type of situation, given what's around them. It's a fair one. So a good take by Mike Guido. Finally, to you, Tim Barnard. I know you have a lot of love for the Buffalo Bills as a Patriots fan, but objectively, should they have the second best odds according to Vegas to win the AFC?
Now, objectively, I would answer the same way I would as if I was a Pats fan, and that's no. I honestly, the way they've been playing this season, yes, granted, they've had a good end of season run. Since they fired Ken Dorsey, again, 6-1, I understand. But you have Baltimore and Kansas City have a better team defense than Buffalo, and Kansas City, Baltimore, and Cleveland have a better pass defense than Buffalo. And at the end of the day, it all settles on Josh Allen and the way he played on Sunday against Miami and Bryson. I was going to bring up that point, was if that 98-yard punt return doesn't happen, does Buffalo win that game? And because let's not forget, Josh Allen has the most interceptions he's thrown in his entire career with 18. Buffalo is second in interceptions thrown as an entire team in the NFL. So what I'm wondering is, can Josh, play a clean game of football? And I don't believe he can. And in the playoffs, when you need to win, when this is a game that you have to win, whether it's at home or away, you have to take care of the football. At the end of the day, taking care of the football is a hell of a lot more important than, sacrificing, obviously bad plays, right? You want to make sure you take care and make good decisions, whether that's a check down or just a 3-yard drag route. Stop trying to hit the home run when you don't need it. Also, not for nothing, Stephon Diggs' career in Buffalo, this has been his worst season by total yards and yards per reception. So again, we've all, even dating back to last year, we've all talked about how Stephon Diggs has been at odds with either Buffalo or Josh Allen not getting the ball, whatever it may be. So can that dysfunction carry on in the playoffs? I don't believe it can. I don't believe they're the second best. At the end of the day, I don't believe they should have the second best odds. That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yeah, and obviously, and again, we obviously give them credit for winning those 5 straight games, and their defense has played a big part, despite losing Matt Milano and despite losing Tre'Davious White. Rasul Douglas, I don't think we're giving him enough love. After he was traded from Green Bay, Rasul Douglas played excellent football down the stretch. This Bills running game has been good. But yeah, the Stephon Diggs thing has been a story for a good 2 months now. Is it due to the new offensive change with Joe Brady coming in place of Ken Dorsey? There's a lot of factors in that regard. So Tim Barnard, I'm going to give you a great take. So you are the points leader. You are followed. Dylan Lima, you are going the final round, which means that Mike Guido is out of the final round, the defending champion and the points leader for the 8 o'clock spot. I'm sorry, Mike. For you today, buddy.
Listen, it's a rare occurrence. It's all right. I can watch from the sidelines this time. Give the champ a little bit of a break. It's all right.
Right. Of course. I mean, listen, LeBron can't make every finals every year, right?
Yeah, that's true. It's very true.
I know you're a LeBron guy. I had to give you love. Okay, shout out Mike Guido. Good performance tonight. Before we move on to the final round, we got a few comments right here. My man Philip Chenault says the Titans should be disbanded. I don't totally disagree with that, and I say that as somebody who lives in the great state of Tennessee. Barry Grant Jr., does Mike get minus 800 for his Josh Allen, Kobe Bryant comparison? Man should be arrested and put in sports jail. Listen, I thought about it, but I'm like, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt because we all have the right to feel how we want to feel. But I was tempted to, Barry. I was very tempted. It's a good thing you put me in the host chair rather than yourself. And then finally, the Gryd Network. Subscribe to the Gryd. Great shows, great takes, great guys. Dare to be different and enter the Gryd. Absolutely, 100%. Please subscribe to the Gryd Network right here on YouTube. Let's get into our final round rules. It's just as simple as this, folks. It's win or go home. The winner gets 10,000 points. The loser comes home empty-handed, 0 points. We got some great playoff games this weekend. One of my favorites, though, is going to be the Green Bay Packers facing the Dallas Cowboys. So Green Bay was 3-6, looks dead in the water, and was able to go 6-1 in their final 7 games to get into the postseason. Jordan Love playing about as well as anybody, second in the NFL, finished second in the NFL in touchdown passes. However, the 7-seed Packers are about a touchdown plus underdogs to the Dallas Cowboys, who are able to clinch the NFC East. Dak Prescott led the NFL in touchdown passes and was able to lead the Cowboys to one of their more impressive offensive regular seasons, especially in regard to touchdown interception ratio. And Dak led the NFL in completion percentage. By the way, could have sworn Dak was this turnover machine and was nowhere near elite. That's not here nor there. I'm not even getting. We're saying about Dak. It's about the Packers. It's about the Cowboys. I'll start with you, Dylan. What is more likely, a Packers upset win or a Cowboys blowout win?
I'm on the Cowboys blowout all the way. Let's be honest here. As much as the Packers have done decent this year, I thought they did better than expected. Their offense, sure, Jordan Love has pretty stats. He likes to spread the ball around, but let's be honest, their run game is terrible. Their receivers, they're all right. There's no one that really stands out on that offense that scares me. We're looking at a team that had 6 of their 9 games in single possession games that they've won. 6 of 9 they've won. One of them was against the Panthers in a 33-30 game. The only game the Panthers scored 30 points all season. That's the team that's going up against the Cowboys on the other half, where not only do you have an explosive offense with Dak having the best year of his career, CeeDee Lamb has 1,700 yards on the season, more than the Packers' top 2 receivers combined. 9 of their 12 wins have been 20-plus point games. Not only have they been winning their games, they're blowing everyone out. And I don't think it's going to be any different with this Packers team. I don't think they have enough gas that if the Cowboys go out ahead, they're just going to stomp on the gas pedal and just burn them. I just don't see in any world that the Packers could even make it a real competition, honestly.
Yeah, and obviously, and you got to factor in as well the fact that Green Bay is one of the youngest teams we've ever seen coming to the playoffs, and Dallas obviously has a lot of veterans and some guys like Stephon Gilmore, for example, with championship experience. Tim, finally with you, what's more likely, a Packers upset win or Cowboys blowout win?
I feel like for the way I've watched the Cowboys throughout my life, my gut wants to tell me the Packers are going to get an upset, but at the end of the day, I got to go with my head. I've got to go with the Cowboys blowout. Because as Dylan, you pointed out, the CeeDee Lamb has over 1,700 yards over the last final 3 games of the season. There's been nobody hotter than CeeDee Lamb, going for 32 catches, 443 yards, and 3 touchdowns. The Packers are 16th in completion percentage and 31st in total INTs as a takeaway. So I have no concern. And to the fact that Dak Prescott has only thrown 9 touchdowns. He said at the start of the season, Dak Prescott, he said he will not throw more than 10 interceptions this season, and he lived up to it through 17 games. I couldn't believe it when I saw it myself. I thought it was hilarious. But also, too, to get on the Packers side of things, their 2 best receivers, Romeo Doubs and Christian Watson. Dobbs is day-to-day after getting injured against Chicago with that chest injury. And Christian Watson has missed the final 5 games due to a hamstring injury. And again, as probably a lot of us know as sports fans, when anything is soft tissue, that risk of re-injury is through the roof. And for somebody like Christian Watson, who's that deep threat type of receiver, that worries me if I were a Green Bay fan, because there is a good possibility that he could re-injure his hamstring. And so
10 seconds, Tim.
I think at the end of the day, it's got to be the Cowboys blowout. Even though they had some bad losses, against Arizona and San Fran, I think it's got to be the Cowboys blowout.
Yeah, and Dallas has been, Dylan, you brought this up, and Tim, you alluded to the fact that Dallas has got a lot in blowout wins. They have 9 20-point-plus wins this season. The entire NFC field in the playoffs has a combined 7. So when Dallas beats you, they beat you up in many ways, shapes, and forms. And some of these have come against pretty solid teams this season. So neither of y'all have won the 8 o'clock spot to this point, so we're going to have a new champion. The champion and the winner this week of the 8 o'clock spot is Dylan Lima. Congratulations, Dylan. You are the winner of the 8 o'clock spot this week on episode 21. You're a champion, Dylan. How are you feeling today?
I'm feeling great. I'm glad I finally made it to this part. I've been to the finals before. I've lost every single time. It was getting to the point that, man, am I going to be like the Buffalo Bills and just be winless? But, luckily I finally pulled one out and finally could put 10,000 plus on my leaderboard now.
Yeah, this is why we love the final round, the 8 o'clock spot, man. It can really put you up there in the standings. There's no question about that. You put up a good performance as well, Tim. We'll put Mike back into the back of the chat. I always ask the person who gets eliminated, did I make the correct decision, Mike Guido?
Listen, I think it could have gone either way. I think both fighters brought their A game tonight. But yeah, I think you made a pretty decent call here. Listen, welcome to the 10K club there, Dylan. Again, courtesy of your points leader.
No question about it. Everybody's great today. Before we even get out of here, I do want to say, listen, the NFL playoffs start this weekend. We are all very, very excited here at the Gryd Network. I'm just going to quickly go across the board. We're not going to waste any time here about who's going to win this year's Super Bowl. Tim, in this playoff bracket, who's winning the Super Bowl?
I got to go with the Niners.
Okay. How about you, Dylan?
Give me the Ravens.
All right, Mike?
I don't know that anybody can consistently beat the Niners. I think it's them.
Okay, 2 Niners, 1 Ravens. They really went on the limb there. We went with the 1 seed. So, but listen, we got the 2 1 seeds last year in the Super Bowl, so we'll see what happens. Very exciting playoffs ahead. Very exciting episode today of the 8 o'clock spot. That is it for this week's edition of the 8 o'clock spot live here in the Gryd Network. Check us out next Tuesday night at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific time, right here on the Gryd Network's YouTube channel and on Twitter. Shout out to Tim and to Mike. Congratulations to Dylan for winning this week's edition of the 8 o'clock spot. Hope everybody has a great week. College football season concluded last night. NFL postseason gets going on Saturday. We'll have tons to get into a week from tonight. So see y'all next week. Stay safe out there. God bless y'all. Peace out.